Okay, so this is a review over solving inequalities, systems of inequalities. So with these, you have two inequalities. You're going to graph them on the same graph, the coordinate grid, and then we're going to do shading in order to determine where the solution area is. So you're going to graph these just like you would graph any other like line like we did a few weeks ago, except for now, because of the inequality, then that just means we have shading versus just a line. All right, a couple of things to remember before we start. If we have greater than or equal to or less than or equal to, you're going to draw it with a solid line, okay? So solid line, kind of looks like a face right here. So we're going to use a solid line when we draw the line. If it is greater than or if it's less than, then we use a dotted line to draw. If it is greater than or equal to, you're going to shade above the line. And then less than or equal to or less than, you're going to shade below the line. All right, those are helpful tips. I'll show you another way to determine where to shade by filling in the point 0, 0 or the number 0, 0, and we'll talk about that as we do them. All right, so if you look at this first one, I'm going to start off by graphing this first line. So I'm going to start here. This is my y-intercept, so I start at +2. And then remember slope. The top number tells us up and down. The bottom number tells us left and right. Okay, and if you have a negative, you put it with the top or bottom, but not both. All right, so my slope is 1/3, so that tells me up 1 and to the right 3. So up 1 to the right 3. And then I can do the other side of the line, the back side of the line, if I just reverse both of those. So down and left. So if I reverse both of them, then I can get the other side of the line. I'm going to take my ruler. I notice that this is less than or equal to, so this is going to be a solid line. All right, and again, it's less than or equal to, so that means I'm going to shade below. But if you couldn't understand above or below, sometimes the angle of the line is really weird, and so it's hard to determine if it's above or below. So to determine that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to test this point right here, 0, 0. I'm going to see if it's part of the solution. If it works inside the inequality, then that means I want to shade over this point because that is part of the solution. You always want to shade over numbers or coordinates that are part of the solution. So if I fill in a 0 for y, and I fill in a 0 for x, 1/3 times 0, that just cancels this whole term out. This is why I like using the point 0, 0s, because you can probably do most of this in your head. So this cancels out, I'm left with 2. So then I look at the inequality. I have 0 is less than or equal to 2. That is a true statement. So that means the point 0, 0 is part of the solution, and therefore I need to shade on the side of the line that has the point 0, 0. So here's the side that has point 0, 0, the point 0, 0, so I'm going to shade everything below. When you shade, you don't have to, but typically it's easier if you start with your lighter of your two highlighter colors. And it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. You just got to know where you're shading. All right, and now I'm going to do the exact same thing, but with the second line. So now I'm starting at -2. And I just have -x here. And remember, that means -1x. And in order for us to have a slope, we need it to be a fraction. So I'm just going to take that -1, and we always put it over the number 1. So if you need to make a whole number a fraction, you just put 1 on the bottom. So now this tells me up or down. Since it's negative, I'm going to go down. And this is positive, so I'm going to go right. So I go down 1 to the right 1. And I can just repeat that pattern to kind of get extra points on the line. Again, this has the equal to under it, so I'm going to draw a solid line. All right, and now I need to determine where I'm going to shade on this. So this says y is greater than, so we're going to shade above, which most likely is going to be this way. again, if you want to test a point, if I put 0 in for y, and if I put a 0 in for x, this is gone. I just have -2. Is 0 greater than or equal to -2? That is true. So then that means the point 0, 0 is part of the solution. So I find the point 0, 0, and that's the side of the line that I'm going to shade on. Again, if you just want to look at the inequality signs and know that because it's a greater than, you shade above, or if it's a less than, you shade below, that's fine too. You don't have to use the point 0, 0 to test. I'm just trying to give you another way to determine where to shade. All right, so now this is it. So the yellow was for this line here, the blue was for this line here. Where they overlapped is green. So the green section here, this is your solution. There's nothing you need to write to the side. This is just your solution. Okay? All right, let's do another one. Okay, so we're going to start at -3. And I have just x, right, which is 1x, which I just put over 1 to make it a fraction so I can do my slope. So it's up 1 to the right 1. And again, this is going to be a solid line because it has the equal to on it. All right, and this is y is greater than, so we're going to shade above. If I test the point 0, 0 is greater than or equal to 3, so that means the point 0, 0 is part of the solution. So again, I want to shade on this side. All right, okay, and then here I'm at +3. So my slope is -5x, right? To make that a fraction, I put it over 1. So the top number tells me I'm going to go down 5, bottom number right 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right 1. Now, this one is just greater than. It doesn't have the equal to on it. So I have to be sure that I do a dotted line for this. There we go. And then, so this is one of those lines that has a weird angle. It says that we're going to shade above. It's kind of weird on which way is above. So again, if you test the points 0, 0, put a 0 in for y. If I put a 0 in for x, 0 times -5, that just eliminates this term right here. So I'm left with a +3. Now, is 0 greater than 3? That is untrue. So that means the point 0, 0 did not work. So when I'm looking at my line right here, this point on this side did not work. I do not want to shade it with my blue. I want to shade the other side of the line. Because the point 0, 0 didn't work, I don't want to shade it. So I'm going to shade on the other side of the line. And then again, where the two highlighters overlap and you're seeing green, that is your solution. All right, so this corner up here is your solution. All right, now if we look at, real quick, number 10. To do number 10, we can't do it exactly how it is currently. We have to make y by itself before we can graph it. This is just like when we graphed linear equations. So if I have 4x plus 7y is greater than or equal to -28. Actually, let's pause that for a second. Let's look at number 9. I apologize. So same thing, we have to solve this for y. So if I start with the first one, all right, so I have to get y by itself. So I'm going to start by moving my x term. So those cancel. Be sure to keep your signs. This is a -4y greater than or equal to -32 minus 5x. I cannot combine these because this has an x and this doesn't, so I just write them side by side. And then divide by -4. And so y, now remember when you divide by a negative, what do you have to do with your inequality sign? It has to flip. Negative divided by negative is a positive. Negative divided by negative is a positive. So 5 fourths x. All right, now this is the equation that you're going to use to graph on here. All right, so if you ever have a problem where it's not y by itself on one side, then you need to do this work here. You get rid of your x term, you move it by opposite operations to the other side, and then divide by the number that's with y. If the number with y is negative, be sure to flip your sign. All right, if you have any questions, please feel free to come see me.